Hello and welcome to this episode of The Rest is Entertainment with me, Marina Hyde.
And me, Richard Osman. Hello, Marina.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad. How's your week been?
It's been wonderful, thank you.
Shall we start with our good friends of the pod, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson?
Yes. Now, this was the fight in Arlington, Texas on the Friday night.
I mean, you say fight.
Yeah, okay, I say fight. I would like there to be liberal, sarcastic air quotes sprinkled throughout the following item.
Yeah, it might as well have had a Netflix executive holding Mike Tyson back.
Again, sport is content. They've also got two big NFL games for Christmas Day, and we're going to come to...
That's a much bigger deal. However big we think Jake Paul v Mike Tyson is, that's the real one.
But sport is content to them, and they got a whole week out of this, as you can see, because you've got all this stuff going up in the build-up. And, it's bizarre. It's the biggest crowd of Mike Tyson's career, so go figure.
Yeah, biggest ever box office gate outside Las Vegas.
Yeah.
In boxing history.
Yes.
I'm going to be controversial and I think it's quite a good idea, isn't it? I know you said it didn't really work for Netflix. I think it probably worked for them okay. I think it works for Tyson because, they've got some money. It certainly works for Jake Paul. Kind of works for the audience.
Can we just make it clear what we're watching here? Because
yes.
I think some people won't have realised, okay? We're talking about a YouTuber who has become a boxer after a fashion.
Yeah.
Who's got a 31-year-old age difference with this guy who's 58. He's got a stomach ulcer who's seen him hospitalised quite a few times in the last few months, arthritis, and a weed farm. Okay, so
yes.
I found it a really sad spectacle, and it was totally bleak. There was a moment before the fight where a 14-year-old YouTuber called Jaslyn Guerra interviews Tyson, and
this was my absolute favourite bit of the whole thing.
Yeah,
and sums up everything. And this, honestly, I think this is the reason you find it so bleak. This is the reason I absolutely love this as a phenomenon.
So after such a successful career, what type of legacy would you like to leave behind when it's all said and done?
Well, I don't know. I don't believe in the word legacy. I just think that's another word for ego. Legacy doesn't mean nothing. That's just some word everybody grabbed onto. It means absolutely nothing to me. I'm just passing through. I'm going to die, and it's going to be over. Who cares about legacy after that? We're nothing. We're just dead. We're dust. We're absolutely nothing. Our legacy is nothing.
We have to say for Jake Paul that he has done an amazing thing for lots of women boxers by really promoting them.
The Taylor versus Serrano fight, one of the
that was a good fight.
Women's boxing fight of all time, is on the undercard to this absolute farrago. But that's why I don't mind it. No one is pretending that Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson is a boxing match. Okay? No one is pretending that. It's the ultimate sort of YouTube prank. If you said 10 years ago, all the kind of things that people do, the biggest thing they said you could possibly do, you could get in a ring with Iron Mike Tyson. That's what Jake Paul has done at absolutely no risk to himself, because as you say, Mike Tyson is 58 years old. He's made a lot of money. He says he's made 40 million. I don't think it's that much. It's a lot still. It's 30 million odd, but it's certainly not 40 million. Tyson's made 10 million. And that's nice of him. He hasn't had to do anything. He's just had a sort of guy who's not that good at boxing throwing punches at him occasionally. Netflix have got a whole group of people who just want to watch this because they understand it as a spectacle. They understand it as a sort of ridiculous WWE fight. And fans have got something they want, which is, a couple of weeks worth of entertainment, wanting Jake Paul to get beaten. They know he's not going to be. But people who say it besmirches boxing, it makes boxing look bad. Do you think
that is ridiculous?
Have you ever seen boxing? I mean, boxing has such a long history of this. This is just the latest.
I agree, and that none of what I was saying was meant to, deny that at all. Boxing is like, it only ever is morally complex at best, and it always has been. And it's like saying this is besmirched the reputation of war. Okay, it's not very nice. Anyway, however, I do think there's something very bleak about watching that, and it's a sort of sad spectacle watching careers kind of end like that. And if it's just about money, and he was a great boxer, and it's just really sad seeing like that. It's actually the plot of Rocky Balboa, do I want to say, which is like Rocky 6, and then he gets back in the ring and he's about 60 alone. It's sort of the plot of that.
Yeah, but did you not just hear what Mike Tyson said to Jazzy?
Yeah, I know.
He said he doesn't care about his legacy. What he cares is about tomorrow. He just got 10 million quid. He's just become relevant to a whole new generation of people. He doesn't care.
And also, if you could see it, you were lucky at the start, because they had Netflix. It was beset by so many problems, which I thought Netflix might be the first to get punched in the mouth, and they duly were, because as we were going through the undercard, people's things were buffering. Everything was being reduced to those kind of big pixel boxes. and it was trending that people couldn't see it, and it was. I mean, I think that a minimum, I think at least 100,000 people definitely had problems. Now, Netflix have done relatively few big live events. There's a Chris Rock special they did.
Yeah.
The disastrous Love is Blind reunion show, which was billed as like a big live event. You're going to be able to watch the Love is Blind reunion show. That went so wrong. You'll have people saying, well, I mean, oh my God, I'm so crushed I couldn't watch the Love is Blind reunion live. And by the way, some people were. But your NFL games on Christmas Day, they better have it right for that. Because if they don't, I can't even imagine. WWE Raw, which they're taking, I think they will have it sorted by the time they've got that on. And, arguably that matters slightly less, but maybe not. But the NFL games on Christmas Day, if they don't get that absolutely perfect, people will go nuts. It's interesting why they're doing this as well. I think we should talk about that because there are lots of things they said they'd never do. They said they'd never do sport. They said they'd never do adverts, but as we now know, they do adverts.
Yeah.
Half of new subscribers are to the ad tier. And if you are selling ads, you need people to be watching something altogether live because then you can sell the ads for more. It's sort of basic. Well, I mean, it's basically what we used to do in what we used to call normal television.
I remember normal television. Yeah.
In America, they would call it cable. And, one of the main reasons people don't leave cable, as they call it in America, is because it's for sport and news. We'll come to whether
so
or not.
90 of the top 100 rated shows in America on cable last year were NFL games. 90 of the top 100.
So if you want to sell ads all the time, they want lots of new viewers at once. And in lots of ways, Netflix is becoming like cable, as they used to call it, because they've got lots of live events. The prices are going up and up, and there are many more adverts. Because even if you pay for no ad, Netflix, you get ads in NFL games.
Yeah.
And wrestling, you're going to have ads in WWE.
And the Paul Tyson match was heavily sponsored, and all of that kind of stuff. I'm going to get back on the hobby horse and say I don't share this vision that it was anything other than some showboating, some sort of P.T. Barnum Greatest Show on Earth stuff. I think it's easy to remember that whatever the hype around it, almost everyone in the world didn't watch it. Yeah. 99.999% of the world did not watch it and did not care. But, the people who did made a lot of noise about it. It is in a sport which cannot in any way stand on any sort of high horse. I mean, the fact that this wasn't in Saudi Arabia was
it's amazing, really.
A shock.
Well done, Texas. Yeah. I think that's about the only state that would have certified it as about.
Oh, and it was genuinely certified as well. But you can go boxing 1896. Bob Fitzsimmons, who was the great Cornish heavyweight, was fighting Tom Sharkey in San Francisco. Do you know who the referee was for that match, who they got in? They said no one can referee this match. It's too much of a grudge match. 1896.
Charles Dickens.
Not Charles Dickens. Wyatt Earp.
That's brilliant.
So Wyatt Earp comes in to referee this fight. Bob Fitzsimmons is a big favourite. He's a better boxer than Tom Sharkey. Sharkey gets knocked down. Wyatt Earp sees some sort of infraction while he's being knocked down, disqualifies Bob Simmons and gives the title to Tom Sharkey. And in America, Wyatt Earp was remembered for many, many years for being a bent boxing referee more than for being, the OK Corral or anything like that. Boxing is a circus. It's always been a circus. Now, people listening at home who don't like boxing have every right to say this Tyson versus Paul thing is disgusting. Anyone who does watch boxing, I watch boxing, I like it. This is we're reaping what we sowed. This is boxing.
I know it's always been disgusting.
Works for everybody.
But to take one of your great stars and to allow
Tyson,
that to happen, yeah.
Tyson is responsible for himself. Tyson has made a series of decisions over his life, some of which went wrong, some of which didn't.
I'm aware he's made some poor decisions.
But he has got agency, and if he's got plenty of money now. By the way, his weed farm is very, very profitable. Do you know what his biggest selling weed gummy line is?
No,
it's severed ears.
Of course.
After the Holyfield thing. And the Holyfield shares, by the way, in the profits from those weed gummies.
What is this? I got you your ear. No, it's not. This ain't my ear. Yes, it is. Cherry pie punch filling. My ears don't taste like cherry pie. Yes, they do.
So Tyson is in a place where finally he's got some money, having been ripped off for his entire life. He's making plenty of money from this, which I think is good. But the whole history of heavyweight boxing is people, being ripped off. And if Tyson wants to make £10 million to fight someone who's not going to hurt him, then Why not?
Well, Katie Taylor said it really mattered to people in boxing.
Who was the amazing Irish boxer
who was on the undercard?
Who won on the
that
undercard.
Was a great fight. She said that it really mattered to people in boxing that Tyson did well. And obviously you saw Tony Bellew in the run-up to it all sort of trying to cause problems in all these 27,000 press conferences they had in the week before because it's all content.
Yeah.
You know, I think that you have to offer a slightly more shaded view, which is that when people see what's one of the great people in their sport or whatever, that allowing themselves, yes, completely allowing that to happen to themselves, they didn't have to love it.
I disagree. I think I'm honestly with Tyson has told us his view. He told it to Jazzy. You know, he says, you know, when we're done, we are nothing. We're dead. We're dust. He doesn't care about legacy. He knows that that's ego. Legacy is this obsession with sport. And you think, no one really cares. You know, no one really cares about the legacy. There might be about 3 sports people ever, but it doesn't matter. You know, sport is soap opera. You know, there's going to be a new Ian Beale sooner or later. You know, these things are cyclical. And Tyson just, he doesn't care. And I quite like it because for years and years and years, people have told him to care. You know, he doesn't anymore. And this is what happens when you don't care anymore. And Tony Bellew doesn't really care either, you know. And Katie Taylor doesn't really care.
He cares about getting some clicks at the press conference.
Of course,
however,
he does.
No, I'm not sure. I thought it was a pretty bleak spectacle, and I'm going to have to stick with that. But I'm glad you thought something different.
Well, I just think it was what it was. I think
is because I was saying that thing about news and sport being the thing that keep people attached to, you know, not becoming cord cutters as they call it, and not leaving cable. I do wonder whether Netflix, given I know they've said they're never going to do news, but it does make me think. I wonder if you will try news because news is a really great way of keeping people watching adverts in you know, real time altogether, and it's
topicality.
It's a big lie. You could, I mean, it's grim, and you could probably switch off the notifications like this if they ever existed, but you could imagine push notifications coming on people's screens saying, you know, Donald Trump guilty verdict or whatever, because they'll always go back to whatever show they were watching while you push that notification.
And huge amounts of the big network news talent in the States now are being fired or, you know, have had their pay hugely cut, and they're all sort of setting up their own news organizations. So there are plenty of trusted anchors who would be happy to step straight into Netflix and be a sort of emergency response unit. Yeah,
and it's hard because clearly they're leaving those established players because the established players are not being able to make news work as a business. It's tricky to be involved in news, and, you know, Facebook, that's part of the reason. And it's a nightmare in lots of ways. That's part of the reason Facebook's sort of withdrawn from it. But that's a different thing in social media. I have to say that even though Netflix have said publicly they're not thinking of doing news, I know that internally they've talked about it. And, you know, it is a way of not getting people to leave the platform. Because once if they hear news and they're going to go anywhere else for it, then they're not on your platform anymore. So you can keep them if you offer it. And I wouldn't be surprised if they experimented at least with doing it for a period.
I would be shocked if they didn't do news at some point. I think, you know, the great disruptor Netflix has stolen the clothes of traditional TV, you know, time after time after time. You know, they came in a suit of armour, and bit by bit they've stolen the socks of terrestrial TV and the pants of terrestrial TV and the hats of terrestrial TV. They just, because that's what people like. And, you know, Netflix now has the eyeballs to be able to do that. And as you say, they said they weren't going to do sport. I mean, this wasn't sport particularly. Well, I mean, honestly, sport. They haven't. Paul versus Tyson. If it was sport, it would have been on pay-per-view. And Jake Paul is smart enough not to put that on pay-per-view because firstly, you'd see the numbers and they wouldn't be amazing. And secondly, people would want their money back. With Netflix, they've already paid. So who's losing? Nobody's losing. So I didn't mind it, and Netflix are going to do news. Those are the 2 headlines there. This episode is brought to you by Sky, where you can watch unmissable shows, including the thrilling new Sky original series, The Day of the Jackal, starring Academy Award winner Eddie Redmayne and BAFTA Award winner Lashana Lynch.
She is terrific. It's based on Frederick Forsyth's acclaimed novel, The Day of the Jackal. The series is a contemporary reimagining of the classic thriller that sees an unrivaled lone assassin, the Jackal.
It's his day.
Take on one last job, putting his secret life in extreme jeopardy. He's under relentless global pursuit from secret agent Bianca. The hunter has become the hunted.
Oh, man, I hate it when that happens. It's one of my absolute favourite books, The Day of the Jackal. It is brilliant, and I can't wait to see these two do it as well. The book itself, and you can see from the trailer as well, is taut, it's propulsive, it's got everything you'd want in a great thriller.
That's right. Lashana Lynch, who, by the way, is superb in every single thing she does, plays a British intelligence officer, again, who won't stop until she has taken the Jackal down.
Eddie Redmayne plays the elusive assassin, the Jackal. Can't be that elusive if I know that Eddie Redmayne is playing him. I could work out where Eddie Redmayne is if I had to.
It's less of a good movie, though, is it? Just you sitting there with your phone trying to work out where Eddie Redmayne is.
Yeah.
It's done.
He's in Soho. But it's a real belter, and these two, I think, are going to do it justice.
Espionage, subterfuge, violence, they will stop at nothing to achieve their goals. Watch the new Sky original series, The Day of the Jackal, on Sky now.
Now, talking about the great fights of our time, we've had Paul versus Tyson, Twitter versus Blue Sky. That's what we're talking about now.
I mean, this is an even more depressing spectacle. Let me say that right from the get-go. Stay with us, listeners. Obviously, people have got lots of issues with Twitter now, and various people have left. The Guardian, where I wrote newspaper columns, announced that it was no longer going to post its stuff on Twitter last week, which was massively supported by readers. And I don't know. I mean, I noticed that the Clifton suspension register stopped posting. The Guardian has stopped posting. All sorts of people have stopped posting and saying, I'm going to Blue Sky, right? I find it quite odd that people have spent a long time howling about social media, always on social media, by the way, and the evils of it and the iniquities. And now they're just going to start the whole depressing journey all over again.
That's the worry.
By the way, before there were platforms, this was the way with even, Usenet groups and things like, internet communities.
Yeah.
You get this thing and it's really fun at first. Then there's a sort of development of what I would call a blue skyocracy, the sort of elite posters who do, and then it becomes, I see that people are already chiding people for not being nice enough on Blue Sky. So they've already got some policing happening. And then there will be all the purity spirals. And then,
Purity spiral is a new one. I love it.
There will be purity spirals. And then the worst people sort of move in, and it becomes that sort of, it's like survival of the shittest, really, isn't it? And that's what, look at Twitter now. That's what you're sort of left with. And I suppose the question is, do you want to start the whole journey all over again? I just feel like I'm not going to lie on my deathbed thinking, oh my God, I wish I'd been on Blue Sky more. So maybe why not even begin the journey?
That's the interesting thing, isn't it? And, since the Trump election, I think it's really gathered a pace. I think there's 1.5 million people joined Blue Sky since the Trump election. And Twitter, a certain sphere of Twitter is full of people leaving. And I absolutely get what you're saying. I think anybody who's not of our generation, anyone from a younger generation, finds it genuinely incomprehensible. They do not understand what the discussion is that, people of our age are having and what upsets them quite so much about Twitter and what they're looking for in Blue Sky. And I do think that it comes, can I be sociological just for a moment?
I really want you to be.
The boomers who get a very hard time of it for buying cheap houses and all this, they did at least grow up in an era it was post-war, something was being built. They genuinely came from something, built something up and, created something, and they had a sense of purpose. Now, our generation, that post-war consensus broke down in the 80s as Thatcher and Reagan, and then in the 90s, suddenly we had Blair and Clinton, and suddenly this liberal progressive idea that actually the post-war consensus could be put back together, and we were building a world that progressed and was moving towards liberal democracy. It became a very real thing. At the end of the 90s, genuinely, there's a group of people who had hope, like proper hope. My daughter said to me the other day, she said, I only realised about a year ago that actually your generation, you actually had some optimism. She said, because we have never had any of it, but we had it. We had that hope in the late 90s, and we thought the idea of the end of history, all of that sort of stuff. There's a whole generation thinking perhaps, our generation's battle is to, include the excluded, is to progress politics, is to, make the world a happier, better place. And Twitter started almost exactly when the credit crunch happened. So 2009, credit crunch happens, and the end of that sort of global liberal, progressiveness was just about starting. Twitter started and everyone thought, oh, this is the place. We can build again. We can build this beautiful liberal democracy where everyone's kind to each other. We can look after each other. And you might say it's naive, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing inside people. And it was that for a few years, I think, for those people. And then the real world comes knocking. And I just think psychologically it's very difficult for people. And they're searching for that thing again. They're searching for the thing they had in the late 90s, which is hope and optimism. And people are good. And also we can reach people. But actually, the more people you meet through social media, the more you realize that almost everyone is different to you. And I think that's psychologically been very, very difficult for people. And I think they try and recreate it. They try and find a way to do it. There's that. And then there's also the fact that some people found it very economically useful to have Twitter.
There's no question of that. I do think that's very difficult. And to have that, and lots of people, writers and things, were found via their Twitter accounts.
Yeah.
I actually found the way that people talk on social media, and I think it's really deceptive, and I actually think there are only about 10 approved joke formats in circulation at any one time.
Agreed.
And so you'll see people you just see 400 versions a day of someone saying no notes or whatever it is, whatever the little buzz phrase it is. And I find it incredibly limiting. I think it's incredibly easy to think you're being productive, and all it is a massive time suck. And you can easily spend hours on it and just get absolutely nowhere from it.
Well, I think sometimes we conflate Twitter with our phones.
Yeah.
We're like, I was spending all my time on my phone. You think, well, you're actually spending all your time on Twitter, chasing after a high that you had a while ago that's never going to come back. So you need more and more and more of it. And, so I think it's an addiction. But the economic side of it, and it was incredibly useful for lots of people. And people say, but it was so great here because, I could promote my business. People were genuinely interested in stuff, and, it was useful for me. And you think, well, yeah, but it was free.
Yeah.
That's the point. I don't mean to be a curmudgeon about it, but it was free. Somebody was paying for that. And like an awful lot of our entertainment in the first 2 decades of the 21st century, it was paid for by venture capitalists. It was paid for by people taking a punt at a time of very low interest rates. And so you were able to promote your business, and you were able to grow your business, and you were able to meet people, and you were able to fall in love with people, all for nothing, because somebody, almost always in California, was paying for that. And at some point, when interest rates go up, they stop paying for it. You can't have this perfect thing of it's free and it's making me money.
Yes, I agree with that. And I also, one of the things I thought was very interesting last week is that report that came out just saying that the rise of boredom amongst people, that it was that, as you say, all of these things of idealism, you've got the world, you've got a computer in your pocket, you should never technically be bored. People have never been so bored. People have never been so bored. And I don't think...
That's a great trailer for this podcast.
The reviews are in.
Yeah, and people have never been so bored. Tickets available, Royal Albert Hall.
I do think it is an unbelievable time suck, and I think people lie to themselves, like all addictions, that they don't spend that long on it, that it's actually, they can stop whenever they want, and it's actually helping them in X, Y. I would never, it's like addictions to anything, and people say, but it helped me grow my business. It's like, yeah, but it also kept you on there for 4 hours a day, so that can't have helped you grow your business much, can it? Why don't you actually spend time in your core business, your business? Yeah,
but the hope thing is interesting, though, and that idea that genuinely, and I just, as I say, to any younger generation who thinks we've all gone mad, I think that's where its roots are, that we generally thought that we had won a certain battle, and we hadn't won that battle.
Find that I never thought Twitter was anything of that.
But the interesting thing about Twitter is because it makes you a broadcaster, it gave the illusion of influence as well. And that's the real danger of something like Twitter, is you think that something bad happens, you can see that someone's been hypocritical, I'm gonna point that out. We'll fix that straight away. Everybody became their own individual instant rebuttal units. Everyone became a spin doctor.
Everyone became a narc.
Everyone.
They did. They became a narc.
I was going to say everyone became Alistair Campbell. Similar. It's similar. But everybody became their own spin doctor, and everyone had this illusion of power. And that's such a dangerous thing to have, because the world is spiraling out of control. And you think, well, maybe one tweet at a time, I can do something about this. I can change this. And it's become apparent for a very long time that you can't. So this blue sky thing, I get it. I really get it. But I think it's the fumes of an old hope. I think is what
and all
people
the
are chasing.
narcs are already telling you can't talk in a certain way. They love it. Get more followers. It's a real. Just do the whole thing again. I am not going to do that particular rerun.
You're not going to Blue Sky?
I can't at the moment. I just think, am I going to lie? Honestly, at my age, am I honestly?
At my age,
no, but
with these knees,
no,
I would rather fight Jake Paul.
You're a long time. That would be content, at least.
You versus Jake
Paul. That would be business. Think how many podcast episodes we get out of it.
Oh my God, you should do that.
Worth it. I know.
There's some bonus episodes there, aren't there?
Don't want to fight Katie Taylor, let me tell you that much.
No.
Right. I just think you're a long time dead, and you're just simply not going to lie on your deathbed thinking, why didn't I spend more time on social media? You simply aren't. And any of the sort of supposedly accrued benefits, I think more and more the time suck and the kind of nonsense of it all, and actually the creative limitation to it. As I say, there's only a few number of joke formats in circulation at any one time. Those outweigh, in my view, the positives. And we have also spent how long explaining that social media is terrible and we all know this and blah, blah, blah. I mean, people talk about it all the time, as I say, always on social media. But, when are we going to wake up? It's just, I think I'm perhaps the addiction
Yeah.
cycle should be broken.
And they're trying to rebuild the thing. I saw a tweet from George Monbiot, who's the sort of he's like a environmentalist. Never quite sure what he is, but he's certainly he's very Twitter visible. But he says one thing I'm very much appreciating on Blue Sky is what we once had on Twitter: reasoned disagreement, as opposed to the tsunami of willful idiocy here, which crushes real debate. I don't want an echo chamber, but nor do I want this bedlam. And that's at the heart of it, because of every single word he says there is true. Of course it's true, but there's no forum for getting it, because the world is bedlam, and all social media does is show you that. You know, that if you said anything he said out loud in a pub and allowed everyone to talk to him, he would see bedlam. And I just don't know how they can rebuild that world, because I don't think that world existed in the first place.
I think that all of these platforms and forums and whatever, there's been so much research on it, degenerate in the same way.
Yeah.
And I can promise you that at some point, lots of people will be saying, I'm going to be leaving Blue Sky because it's really horrible and it's now full of awful people and I don't like the way, it didn't used to be like this, and they'll be going somewhere else. And it's just how long you want to continue the great migration. I think I'm getting off.
Well, they say there's a sort of optimum number for any community or any organisation. I think it's 150. They always say there are various reports that say it's 150, and beyond that, the centre cannot hold, and that's when things become factional, and that's where sects develop, but SECTSs develop, and that's when everyone tries to bring things back to where they started and where they belonged. You see it in big businesses all the time. It's where you have to hive off various different bits of your business when you get too big, and you certainly see it in villages that turn into towns, that turn into cities. And it's the same thing. I know it feels like it's digital, but it's real. It's people.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it
yes,
is not
it's,
people.
It's
a lot
a
of it is bots.
human impulse.
Yeah, exactly. It's a human impulse, and it gets too big, and the centre can't hold. But people have lost something, genuinely, and I get it. I get the grief for what it was and what it gave people over the years. I see it, and I'm not saying I am going to go to Blue Sky. I'm okay on Twitter at the moment. I'm not making any money for Elon Musk. He's losing money.
You are working for him for free.
For Elon Musk? Yeah, sure.
You're working for a loss-making tyrant for free.
Yeah, I work for Gary Lineker for free, mate. That's what I do. That's how I live my life. And lots of people, lots of businesses are leaving Twitter, and I get that, because that is, you do have to be very careful what you're, what you're alongside on a feed. But lots of the social media managers are saying, "Oh, I want to leave Twitter," and you go, "Well, why are you leaving Twitter?" Go, "Well, it's just one less thing I have to do, isn't it? It's one less thing I have to post to." So it plays into other people's hands as well.
Okay, let's end on an up, because all the big TV Christmas ads by the retailers have come out, and the John Lewis one is always the big one, but they've Morrison's, Sainsbury's, Coke. Greggs have got one this year with Nigella. We'll come to that one. And Iceland, all of these ones, whether they do them or they don't do them, it is now a huge part of the calendar. But
it feels like it's been around forever. And really, if we can trace back an origin story, it's probably 2009. I
think it's 2007 that they do the first John Lewis Christmas ad.
But the first John Lewis Christmas ad that we really think of, which was
2009, which is a new agency who did that one.
Adam and Eve. And they came up with the one where the parents are creeping upstairs to leave the present for the kid, whilst the kid is creeping downstairs to leave a present for the dog. And that's the first. And it had, a lovely sort of emo version of Sweet Child of Mine on the soundtrack. And I think that's what we think of when we think of the big John Lewis Christmas adverts. I think 2009. So it's like 50. It's about the same age as Twitter.
Yeah.
If you remember.
Yes.
Remember Twitter?
Yes. And these adverts have become huge things. Your normal ad agency does them, but a big part of their pitch to the retailers is, what you would do at Christmas. Now, someone I talked to about this who's really interesting is a guy called George Knott, who works at the Grocer magazine. Now, like all trade publications, the Grocer covers like grocery sales, like all those kind of niche publications. Is totally fascinating.
Oh, if ever there's like a tweet from the Grocer, you're kind of going, "What did you just say about crunchies?"
Yeah, it's really interesting. Okay, so this quarter, they call it the Golden Quarter. Yeah. Okay, so it's the biggest thing, and it has to work. Their sales really, really matter.
We're spending about 14 billion in the run up to Christmas, in the 4 weeks before Christmas. I mean, if you have a good Christmas as a retailer, your year is made. Yeah. If you have a bad Christmas, trouble.
Some years that the retailers have sort of made a big thing, like Iceland made a big deal of saying we're not going to do one last year of these Christmas adverts. We're going to put the money onto sort of cost savings instead. It's like, okay, thanks for my 0.001p off a box of mince pies, but in general, these big ads have become part of the Christmas furniture. Now, what's fascinating is that no one is really clear at all whether this stuff moves the dial. Okay,
Yeah.
like it's really interesting.
It's a real arms race.
Yeah, it's an arms race, but it reminds me a lot of. Actually, that reminds me a lot of. I was reading a political paper last week, bizarrely, a kind of obscure political paper about saying how leaders' campaign visits in politics, which by the way is the entire general election campaign, as the leader is somewhere every day. It's such a negligible difference, or it's like a nothing. And it costs so much money. It's like you're endlessly travelling all these places.
It's why I say all the time to my publishers, stop putting up billboards.
Yeah.
So they cost an absolute fortune and nobody is looking at them.
Yeah.
Absolutely nobody.
It's sort of vibes-based, so
Yes,
they don't
it's
really know.
vibes-based.
They don't understand whether it's kind of causally related or it's just correlated. They just don't understand. But anyway, but what they are is signals of intent. By the way, if you work at an advertising agency and we look back at some of the great adverts and we look at things in the 90s and the 80s that were really artistic and we loved them, and this is the whole, and going further beyond that, the whole Mad Men era. Advertising is now relatively boring compared to what it used to be. There's so much less scope to do arty things. It's just all different.
So much less money to do arty.
There's so much less money. But this is a thing where they're going to spend a lot of money and say, go on, have fun and do something weird. So one of the things we're starting to see are like characters that are returning. The Morrison's oven gloves are back this year.
Phew.
Yeah. Well, no, but everyone thought that was the best advert last year. So you've got these like returning characters. It's kind of crazy. It's sort of like a Christmas special. There is another very interesting company. Can I please talk about System 1? Now, System 1 is a marketing research and effectiveness company, right? So
System 1.
Yeah, System 1, I know. They get together ordinary people, and they've already started doing this year, so I can tell you some of the scores for these adverts. They make them watch the ads. They have a methodology via which they observe their facial movements, their emotional cues.
Wow.
And you get a test your ad score, which is from 1 star to 5.9 star. 5.9 is the maximum.
5.9?
I know.
Listen, there'll be a reason for it.
Yeah, well, it's like the East German figure skating judge in the Cold War. You're never getting 6, okay?
Yeah,
That's
okay.
just not happening, okay?
It's like Craig. Craig on Strictly.
Okay, now only 1% of normal ads are in the 5-star range, but it's really common at Christmas to get in 5-star range because brands save all their big spends for this, okay? So we've already got 5.9s this year for like Aldi, Sainsbury's, Lidl, Cadbury, Amazon, M&S Food, all of those ones. They keep coming back and, retesting them with people. People love these adverts.
Yeah.
Now, something like Nigella, Greggs have done an advert this year, which again is like a bit of a breakthrough, and Nigella has done that.
Because they did a few years ago. They did the sausage roll nativity scene, didn't they?
Yeah.
Which let's say broke through.
Yeah, it broke through. Nigella's done this one. Now they've got a 4.4 score for that. Now, if you might think, oh, but they're not in the 5s. That's unbelievable as a breakthrough ad where you haven't got this thing. So she's done really well there. Same with David Beckham for Ninja. That's like up in the 4s. So these adverts really kind of have a breakthrough. Which brings us to an advert which has scored 5.9.
No.
And is the Coke AI advert. And I don't know if you've seen this. The Coke have done an AI advert. You might have heard about this because it's basically a sort of recreation of many previous campaigns, all done by AI. It's scored exactly as highly as previous campaigns which were not done by AI, okay? And it's got 5.9 stars in this System 1 system, 98% distinctiveness. Ooh.
Wow.
And huge positive emotions, almost zero negative emotions, okay? And Coke have been really clever with that, I mean, in a sort of grim way, which is that they've thought, okay, we're going to announce that our ad is purely AI.
Yeah.
That means everyone is going to do a news story saying, oh, Coke have done their AI.
Yeah.
So
everyone's going to show it.
Everyone's going to show it. You've got free advertising on all the news pages because everyone will write a story about saying Coke have done their whole first advert by AI. Okay, that's what you always want with anything, is that people end up writing, even if you're like it's a TV program, anything like that. If people are writing news stories or features that are off the back of it, you are constantly having your program
That's free money.
advertised in a really organic, kind of engaging way. It doesn't seem like an advert.
It's not just in the ad breaks.
No. Yeah. Newspapers have essentially been running adverts for the Coke advert now, and people love it and they don't think it's any different. And I think it is eerie and weird, but maybe it's because I already know.
Well, and also it's one of those interesting things, our fear of AI, which we talked about before. But I think this is where AI is really going to go in the creative industries. I suspect we'll talk about this next year, which is Coke have AI'd their own material.
Yeah.
So they've allowed AI to use their own archive and to produce something based on their own material. And by the way, there will have been a lot of hands across it as well. They can say it was all AI, all they want, but it would have had an enormous amount of human prompts. And all of the big AI partnerships with Hollywood, with television companies, are essentially saying, can we use AI on, say, Back to the Future? Yes, you can. Let's sign a deal. Everything you do, though, is ring-fenced to the Back to the Future universe. You can't use anything outside Back to the Future, but you still have to pay us, £30 million or whatever it is. And Coca-Cola are saying, of course, AI, you can use the Coke advert, but it is owned by Coca-Cola and it doesn't go anywhere else. And we get a cheap advert, but it's based on the fact that we spent an awful lot of money and creativity on these adverts over the previous years. So in a way, you kind of go, well, Coke can do what they want because it's theirs, and they've already paid for it, and it's their stuff. But there's loads of humans behind all these AI things, and there are going to be for so many years to come, because it's kind of, you can have fun with AI and it can do certain things and do it quicker, but it's not working without the prompts. It is not working without being given a target, and the target that's been given is always by the human. So I think interesting that AI ad is a sign of things to come, which is companies can use it on IP they already own, rather than just say, just create me a brand new ad out of nothing. And that's why people love the ad, because they know all the imagery in the ad. They get it all already, and it makes them feel something. And Coca-Cola, I think, probably within their rights to do whatever they want with
Sure, but all of those creatives who are involved in those will never see another. You do sign a contract saying you own my work, but then... Yeah. And I'm afraid that all those people over all those years will have their work taken, and they're not going to see anything. I'm sure it makes great sense for the Coca-Cola company.
Yeah, but don't forget that it's being run by ad execs who had this idea. And they're just using, every TV show I've ever done, House of Games, I never get another penny after I walk off set. People can do whatever they want with it forever and ever and ever. But, the whole point, I talked to Ross Neal, who's at VCCP, a creative director there, who whenever I talk to him, I say, but surely, what's happening with adverts, though? Because surely there's less money. And he goes, no, there's not less money. There's less money for TV adverts. He said, but I've literally never been busier. And he says, even at Christmas, companies, of course, want to have these ads that, run in Coronation Street and I'm a Celebrity, but they need so many different variations of that ad to run on socials and to run in the cinema and to run on digital radio. He said that, it's become a much more fragmented thing, but having that vision at the core of it. Waitrose this year has got like a big sort of, almost like a mystery thing with Matthew McFadden as a detective, which can be chopped up into 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20, can go sort of anywhere. And the whole thing is, it goes across, all these different media. And, when we've talked about the advertising problem is for a terrestrial TV, actual advertisers, there's plenty of money coming in. I think that it feels like, as you say, look, it's a bit of fluff and it's to get it in all the newspapers, but it's, I don't think that's an immediate threat to people's jobs.
Well, one thing, speaking of humans at the end, that George Knott pointed out to me when I was talking to him, George Knott from The Grocer, was that actually a huge part of these adverts are almost to give a morale based to do with the company's own staff.
Yeah,
and it has a huge impact because you're going into the golden quarter. It is totally exhausting, obviously. And so having something that the staff feel like is behind that and that they really like is actually a big part of it, because they are huge employers, as we know. If you go into Waitrose at the moment, the staff are wearing T-shirts of the different people in the Who Done. I think whoever did it.
Yeah. I would. By the way, whichever advertising agency is behind that, I would have been available.
Yeah, I can't believe they didn't ask you.
If you need someone to do a bit
hi, Mr. Waitrose was right there.
Listen, I don't know. I
or
don't
will you be revealed at something later on in the campaign? I wish you would be.
That's clever.
But as does Adverts got like just 2 staff who have to call on an A-team of gnomes to help them. Now, plot lines, because they've just cut 500 staff at head office and people are saying more cuts are coming. So people are like, well, that's quite ironic, isn't it? That there are only 2 staff left to do it. There are whole other things that we're not necessarily thinking about, but they are really important for staff morale. So given how important that golden quarter is, you can see that these adverts, whilst not being particularly quantifiable in terms of actual effects on the bottom line, have huge sort of vibes-based importance.
They do have huge vibes, but that's the whole of advertising, is a huge vibes-based importance. The John Lewis one this year I think it's the first time ever they're actually inside a John Lewis store. Yeah, which is new. Best Christmas advert ever. Can I tell you my favourite one? You just tell me yours. The most expensive one was the Man in the Moon one.
Oh yeah.
With the telescope, which cost $7 million. I think. And then the one the year after, the dog on the trampoline cost 1 million, so they saved 6 million in a year. I think the best one ever is the one the John Lewis from 2022, I think, with the guy you see practicing skateboard tricks and getting them wrong.
Yeah.
And then the girl comes through with a skateboard at the end. That to me, I'd be watching that, the 50th time and still crying.
They're fun to work on. I think they are fun to work on for creators who have less creative time than they used to in the old days.
Yeah, exactly that. But yes, so it's a celebration of an industry that actually appears to be in rude health in some ways. But it's nice to see them flex their muscles every now and again.
Right then, any recommendations, Richard?
Yes, on iPlayer there's a 3-part documentary about the search for Lord Lucan. And if you think, oh my God, I've seen that story a million times before, it is told in such a completely different way. It starts off as quite a traditional, this is the story, this is the man, where is he? But you follow one man's search for Lord Lucan, and that man has a particularly strong reason for wanting to find Lord Lucan, and the documentary becomes his story, and it's sort of very moving in a really, really interesting, very unusual way. It's 3 parts. It's on iPlayer, and I'd really recommend it.
That's good. I'm going to recommend something that I found incredibly compelling and watched so many of to YouTube, like data visualization by this guy called Keyson Stats. He'll cover things like size of individual countries' economies, for rankings of them as well, from, say, 1600 to 2024. And you just watch, it's amazing, watching the East India Company.
You watch like the bar charts of the different links as they
they're
change
done
position.
As bar charts.
Yeah.
And you sit in front of these things for a long time as you're just thinking, oh my God, look at the East India Company go. Oh, look, it's merged with the British Empire. Oh, yeah, look at it go back down again now, all the way. That's really interesting. There was another one I was watching of, I don't know if your children play Roblox. I found this really compelling.
I mean, my children are in their 20s.
No, not yours. Yours as in the listener, yours. I'm so
yes,
sorry. I'm using a you plural.
Yes,
do forgive me.
The you what now?
It's not all about you singular.
Yeah, exactly. I am going to go on Blue Sky and have a go at you about that now.
And why don't you police me? That's what it's going to be. Go on, knock on me. Anyway, so yes, the games on Roblox that became dominant, and oh my God, the hegemony of Adopt Me. And if you know that game, you know it.
I thought Roblox was a game. Have I got
that
wrong?
Roblox is a platform. Right?
There you go.
And YouTubers, so you watch who are the biggest YouTubers in the world, and then you just watch Mr. Beast just start to go. Right,
so it's just entertaining data visualization.
It's literally watching a bar chart, but it's so compelling.
And
please,
what's the name of the
Keyson Stats?
Amazing. Now, listen, we're going to do a question and answer edition on Thursday, and we're going to talk about bookshelves. We will talk about other things as well.
We will talk about other things. I will begin with a legal statement from my own husband.
Oh, excellent. We've disagreed a lot in this episode.
Yeah.
I quite like it.
That's showbiz.
Yeah, that is showbiz, isn't it? See you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday.